happening this hour. Is Congress going to vote yes or no to hold former President Bill Clinton, former Secretary of State Hilary Clinton, both in contempt of Congress? Last month, both Clintons failed to show up for their subpoenaed testimony in the congressional investigation involving Jeffrey Epstein. But that's not all Congress might be voting on this hour. The second vote is about funding the government and ending the partial shutdown they put us in as of midnight on Friday night. And President Trump may be headed back to court, not as a defendant, but as a plaintiff. Last night, Jeffrey Epstein's name came up at the Grammys. The host, Trevor Noah, tried to make a joke, but Trump says it is defamation, not a joke. So now Trevor Noah may get sued. We're going to tell you all about it in just a few seconds. And also had a nightmare for Today's Show host Savannah Guthrie. Her mother is missing. Police say her mother's home in Arizona is now a crime scene. And there's another judge who may be behaving badly. At least that is what a federal grand jury says. A judge in Detroit is accused of taking money from the weak and giving it to herself. But first, another Trump lawsuit, not against him, but against someone else, Trevor Noah. At last night's Grammy Awards, he said this.
Song of the Year. Congratulations, Billie Eilish. Wow. That is a Grammy that every artist wants, almost as much as Trump wants Greenland. Which makes sense. I mean, because Epstein's island is gone, he needs a new one to hang out with Bill Clinton.
Well, that didn't sit too well with the president. He jumped on Truth Social and he posted in part, quote, Noah said incorrectly about me that Donald Trump and Bill Clinton spent time on Epstein Island. Wrong. I can't speak for Bill, but I've never been to Epstein Island nor anywhere close. And until tonight's false and defamatory statement, I have never been accused of being there, not even by the fake news media. Noah, a total loser. Better get his facts straight and get them straight fast. It looks like I will be sending my lawyers to sue this poor, pathetic, talentless dope of an MC and suing him for plenty, end quote. That is not the only person who may get served with a Trump lawsuit. President Trump is also vowing to sue author Michael Wolff and the estate of Jeffrey Epstein. This threat came after Friday's Justice Department document dump. DOJ released more than 3 million additional Epstein files. 24 hours later on Saturday, Trump said this about the documents and the legal action that could come.
It looked like this guy Wolff, who's a writer, was conspiring with Epstein to do harm to me. And I didn't see it myself, but I was told by some very important people that not only does it absolve me, it's the opposite of what people were hoping, you know, the radical left. That Wolff was a third-rate writer, was conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein to hurt me, politically or otherwise, and that came through loud and clear. So we'll probably sue Wolff on that.
Author Michael Wolff has now responded to Trump's threat of a lawsuit. Yesterday on Instagram, Wolff posted this.
I woke up this morning and found that last night Donald Trump had threatened to sue me. Again, I think this is the third or possibly fourth time the President of the United States has threatened to sue me. And his response was that, well, he was going to sue Wolff, a writer, because I had conspired with Epstein to frame him, I think was his point. And yes, I tried to encourage Jeffrey Epstein in any way I knew how to come forward with what he knew about Donald Trump. And actually, Epstein had started to do that. This lawsuit gives me the power to subpoena Mrs. Trump, Mr. Trump, and all their friends to talk about the Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
Former federal prosecutor Joseph Moreno joins me. You know, Joe, all of a sudden Michael Wolff is the Good Samaritan. He tried to encourage Jeffrey Epstein behind the scenes to come forward and talk about Trump. You know, what a Good Samaritan. Why? It's like, you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, a lot of tough talk. You know, look, either way, it keeps us lawyers well employed because we love lawsuits, right? So either way, whether they're meritless or not. I think in this age of all that's happening, whether it's the protests in Minnesota or this Epstein fallout and people just taunting each other in public, I think there's a wide misconception of what exactly the First Amendment means and who it applies to, right? It protects you against the government impinging against your right to speak your mind. It's not between people.
But this is defamation saying that you... Okay, go ahead.
Well, exactly. So, and it does not protect you. It does not allow you to defame people. So people that are very quick to say, free speech, I can kind of do what I want. No, you can't defame people. You can't threaten people. You can't inject yourself into things like law enforcement operations or put your hands on people. So I think people have to get a sense of like what exactly the First Amendment means. And when you taunt even a public figure like the president, when you say something like this, I'm not sure it's going to be a real lawsuit, but you really should be much more careful, especially about the Epstein stuff, which we know is really sensitive.
It's really toxic. Well, it's unbelievable. Even earlier today, Piers Morgan is a British broadcaster, journalist, television personality. He retweeted this post by internet personality, love the name, Sneeko. It is a picture of Piers with Ghislaine Maxwell. Sneeko asked Piers why he would go to that island. Piers taking no prisoners, firing back saying, quote, delete this defamatory lie or I will sue you. Now, the picture isn't even he isn't even on an island. It's not even, apparently he's at some some book sale or something.
I guess you could parse whether or not this was a false statement with malicious intent. There's different.
Well, it wasn't a good intent.
No, it wasn't a good intent. So.
And it says, TF, would you go to that island? I mean, there's a little bit more that I sanitized.
It's an implication there, right? Look, again, whether or not these are like realistic lawsuits or whether they'll actually just either become settlements or they're just taunts and they won't go anywhere at all, it doesn't change the fact that people really should be more careful. And I get it. Everyone's got a megaphone, right? Everyone's got an X account or Facebook or whatever, and you can put your things out there. But people really should kind of dial back what we say about each other these days.
This is what I don't understand about ABC and the whole thing when I think it was George Stephanopoulos kept saying, using the word rape or something like that, when there was never an allegation of rape. And if the news organizations would quit digging their heels in and once in a while admit they made a mistake or they got it wrong and correct it, and they can even overcorrect it. They could say it 15 times, but the problem is they dig their heels in and cry First Amendment. Yeah. And so then it's explosive because you're not always going to get it 100% right.
And people, Americans in general who are not lawyers, may not totally understand the First Amendment, but the news networks should. They have armies of lawyers to explain to them what's right and what's wrong. So you're absolutely right. I mean, they got to be a lot more careful and a lot less stubborn.
But if they make a mistake, just own it. Own it and correct it. I mean, that's one of the things we talk about damages. When you have defamed someone, there's a question of the damage. If you quickly, right out of the gate, when you've made a mistake, you apologize and you overcorrect, then the damage is diminished.
Exactly, because part of a defamation action has to be harm to reputation or financial harm. So if you retract something immediately and said, sorry, misspoke, didn't mean it, it was a mistake, well, then it's a lot harder to prove defamation against you. So you're right. If you would own it up front, there'd be a lot less of a threat long term.
All right. The 3 million documents are released on Friday. I had a thought about those. They're pretty salacious. The pictures of lots of people and everything. And they were from all the criminal investigations where lots of prosecutors had their hands on them over the years, different prosecutors in different jurisdictions, everything. I have to admit, I'm somewhat, I don't say this often, proud of the prosecutors. They never leaked them to defame them. These are only coming out on Friday at 5 o'clock. And so the prosecutors on these cases did keep their oath.
Good point. And remember, these go back to 2005. Right, because the first prosecution of Epstein was in 2008 in Florida, but the feds were involved back then. So you're talking about 20 years of investigative materials over 4 different administrations, right? 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. And so you're right, it is admirable that this stuff has not been leaked,
not even one document pilfered,
no,
not even one out of 3 million pilfered.
It's true.
And, it's amazing.
It's true. So the system can work. Again, I've made clear my thoughts, my fears about dumping investigative files into the public domain. But you're right, if we're going to do it, you might as well do it methodically. And it's better that it's being done pursuant to a congressional law than just leaked.
All right. Michael Wolff says that if basically bring it on. And when you bring it on, I'm going to depose your wife.
Well,
Trump, the first lady.
I guess that is always the initial retort when you get faced with a threat of a lawsuit saying, okay, well, that gives me discovery rights too. So you sue me, it's basically open door to whatever you know. So again, that's the kind of the back and forth as to why these lawsuits are often threats but don't ultimately go anywhere.
But if they do, if you do get sued for defamation, you do have a right for discovery. And people get put under oath in taped depositions.
Sure.
That's frightening.
Yeah, sure. Which is why most of them get settled or just get dropped.
But anyway, So anyway, the other thing that we haven't talked about is that Trevor Noah. He may have said something dopey that's wrong. he did it in the context of being a comedian. And there is, I mean, you know, a lot of things. If you go back and watch the old Seinfeld episodes, Jerry Seinfeld was very funny in the 90s. He'd get canceled in the 20s. I mean, his career would be over. But, you know, I mean, a lot of the sort of things that we try to say are funny that maybe sometimes they're hurtful. But you know, comedians have also taken on the chin on this.
Yeah, I don't think if Trump were to pursue an action against Trevor Noah, I don't think it would go very far. Because I think he could say it was a joke. He did weave it into that Greenland.
A joke doesn't always get you off the hook.
No, but you do have to show that it was a knowing lie with some degree of malicious intent. So if he can say it was joking, he interwove it into the Greenland reference. It was kind of part of this launching off.
What if he had a history of being of trash talking the president?
It's a high bar, right? It's a high bar because he wasn't trying to put facts across seriously. They'll say he was joking. Look, again, hire me as a lawyer. I'm more than happy to run with a lawsuit, but I don't think this is the strongest one out there.
Well, the other thing, too, is that you wouldn't want a Republican jury, because the Republican jury would say Hollywood only makes fun of the Republicans.
Yeah, you know,
they never make fun of the Democrats.
It's a bit of a one-sided thing there, but I don't know how far it would go here in D.C.
No, not indeed in D.C. I don't know. Anyway, we live in unusual times. Joe Moreno, thank you.
Thanks, Greta.
And today, the Epstein investigation is also playing out on Capitol Hill. As you will remember, last month, former President Bill Clinton and his wife, former Secretary of State Hilary Clinton, refused to comply with subpoenas from the House Oversight Committee investigating the Jeffrey Epstein matter. After the subpoenas were ignored, the Oversight Committee then voted to hold both Clintons in contempt of Congress. This hour, the House Rules Committee is considering the contempt resolutions voted by the committee. If those resolutions pass, the Rules Committee will then head to the full House for a vote. That full vote could happen this week. If passed by the full House, then these resolutions to hold the Clintons in contempt would lead to criminal referrals sent to the Department of Justice. Whether to prosecute the Clintons for contempt of Congress will then be decided by the Attorney General of the United States. We're going to be following the story today and bring you updates as they occur. Also happening on Capitol Hill, the partial government shutdown has entered its third day. On Friday, the Senate passed legislation to fund much of the government. It also passed a 2-week extension for funding of the Department of Homeland Security. Democrats wanted to block funding of Homeland Security because of the 2 fatal shootings by federal agents in Minnesota. Democrats want DHS to be reformed, including unmasking of ICE agents. Despite the Senate passing the funding legislation on Friday, the government did go into a partial shutdown. This is because the House was in recess and thus not able to vote yes or no on the Senate's funding legislation before Friday's midnight deadline. Today, the House is back at work. The House Rules Committee is marking up the Senate funding package. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson says he thinks the House will end the shutdown by tomorrow. Coming up, an upset in Texas closely watched by both Republicans and Democrats. It may be ringing an alarm bell for one party. Plus, a Detroit judge is outrageous, or at least that's what the federal grand jury says. Find out why when the record continues.
Will you be able to afford your golden years? Do you worry how you'll make ends meet? You may be leaving up to $100,000 unclaimed. You need this special report. How to boost your Social Security and retirement by at least $100,000 or more. Get your free copy today. You've earned the benefits. Take advantage now. See our special offer to claim your free report. Call or go online today.
Those 30 years that I served in the military, I required excellence in everything that people did, quality and nothing but the best. After researching different wallets, I realized this is the top wallet that's out there today. There's no other product like it. They remind me of my soldiers through the years that were proud of what they did and to serve their country. I'm going to be Proof's highest ambassador. You can't go wrong. Purchase Proof products and support the veterans that are working hard to make this product. Airborne all the way.
Hi, I'm Wade Allen Root, the national TV and radio host known as the MAGA warrior and the capitalist evangelist. This presidency is ushering in the golden age of prosperity, and it's all built around making America the energy capital of the world. Enter Lost Soldier Oil and Gas. It took 40 years to piece together this 40,000-acre giant gas discovery. It's estimated to contain up to 6 trillion cubic feet of gas, with a management forecast projecting the first 25 wells alone to produce 400 million cubic feet per day of natural gas. This is how we power the AI future of America with clean natural gas. Headed by oil and gas legend Mark Bruner, whose previous public companies delivered spectacular returns for investors. At their peaks, Pedico Energy grew about 100 to 1 for investors. Ultra Petroleum grew about 1,000 to 1 for investors. To learn more about Lost Soldier Oil and Gas, scan the QR code on the screen or go to lostsoldier.com. That's lostsoldier.com.
Well, it's the midterm season, and no one saw this one coming. A stunner in the Longhorn State that may be sending warning signals to Republicans. Democrat Taylor Remmett, a union president in Fort Worth, clobbered Republican conservative activist Lee Wamsgans for state senate. Clobbered by a whopping 14 points. Making that 14 points that a Democrat beats a Republican in that district more astounding is that just over a year ago in the 2024 election, a Republican named Donald Trump beat a Democrat, Vice President Harris, in that district by a whopping 17 points. Now, the day before the political beating, President Trump endorsed Wamsgans. Yesterday, the president tried to downplay the beating his candidate got.
You mean I won by 17 and this person lost? Things like that happen.
Does it worry you about the
Well, you don't know whether or not it's transferable. You know, I'm not on the ballot, so you don't know whether or not it's transferable. But, you know, you put the Democrats in, you'll end up with open borders again. You'll end up with crime all over the place. We have no crime anymore. And, I mean, think of it. The country has the lowest crime it's had in 125 years. In recorded history. The year 1900. That's a long time ago. So it's very good. No, I don't know anything about it. I didn't know. I mean, I know there's a race going there. And it's too bad. What can I say? I have nothing to do with it.
Meanwhile, next door to Texas is Louisiana, and people are carefully watching the Republican primary in the U.S. Senate race. Incumbent Republican Senator Bill Cassidy is running for re-election to a third term. But he's facing a primary challenge from Congresswoman Julia Letlow. Making this perhaps a challenging race for the two-term Senate incumbent, on January 17th, President Trump wrote on Truth Social in part, quote, "Should she decide to enter the race, Julia Letlow has my complete and total endorsement. Run, Julia, run," end quote. Well, guess what happened 3 days later? You guessed it. Letlow announced her run to challenge fellow Republican Bill Cassidy. If you were wondering, though, why Trump might be backing Letlow over an incumbent Republican senator, consider this. Senator Cassidy is one of the 7 Republicans who voted to convict Trump in the 2021 Senate trial about the events of January 6. While Letlow has the Trump's Truth Social backing, political reports around the time of Trump's endorsement of Letlow, Senate Majority Leader John Thune campaigned with Cassidy and even urged Trump to support Cassidy. And of course, there's always more Senate intrigue. The number 2, Republican Senator John Barrasso, says he also supports Cassidy. Former Special Assistant President Biden, as well as former Press Secretary to First Lady Joe Biden, Michael LaRosa, and CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp joins me. Matt, first to you, because that race in Texas, a state Senate race, Trump wins by 17, and suddenly the race goes Democrat, and that Democrat wins by 14. Scared?
31-point swing. Yeah, I think it's a
good at math.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it's something. I've talked to some high-level people in Texas today, and I do think it's a wake-up call for all of them. Look, this is the big question. I'm not sure whether this race really isn't going to be indicative of what's going to go on around the country in these midterms.
That much of a swing?
But let me say this. This is the big question for Republicans, especially in this town. My former friends, they hate Trump so much, right? They're like Trump. They're always trying to minimize what Trump does. It's a legitimate question. Donald Trump's name is not on the ballot. Will it transfer in all these races? Now, if you say he's not on the ballot and won't transfer and these candidates are on their own, then this woman lost this race because she was a weak candidate or had a bad campaign. If your argument is that all of these races will be about Donald Trump, there's a positive to that, too. First of all, he's got billions of dollars that he's raised. Second, and the Republican entities have a lot more money than the Democratic entities. And if he barnstorms the country, as he promises to do, then I give the Republicans a much better chance than what the kind of the hoi polloi of the D.C. media is saying, which is they already lost it.
He's looking like the Cheshire Cat. He's got a big grin on his face.
No. I think there's a lot of... I think in 2022, during our midterm, there was this confidence that Republicans had that it was going to be this red wave. And, because inflation was at basically a 45-year high, and there was no way that we weren't going to have a 94 wave. And we didn't. We had a puddle. Democrats expanded their majority in the Senate, and they barely won the House. But that's because events are more determinative. Now, this county in Texas, it's a county that Biden won, actually, in 2020, beat the president in barely. The state Senate district is very red. The county is sort of purple. I don't know if it's necessarily a harbinger of what I'm always reluctant to extrapolate and read tea leaves from these special elections, because I don't think that they tell us much about what's going to happen in the places that will determine the majority, which are Allentown, Scranton, suburbs of Denver, Kenosha, places like that.
Kenosha, great state of Wisconsin.
Yes.
Of course, but I will say this, which is I like the wake-up calls for my team. I like the fact that it gets everybody very, very focused on the fact that this idea that they can sit back and just run television ads and just jump on Trump's coattails is a very dangerous thing in politics. They have to run really good races. They have to out-hustle their opponents. And I think for too many Republicans who are used to just kind of sitting back and paying for big social media campaigns and stuff, you got to get out there and you got to work it.
Well, Trump is certainly, he's punishing Cassidy, Senator Cassidy.
Good.
I guess we know how Matt feels, but
Well, we both agree on this. Let's punish Senator Cassidy.
I mean, I would love to see another Democrat in that seat.
you don't think that if Letlow wins the primary that she would necessarily prevail?
I think Letlow would probably prevail, correct?
Look, it's a weird state. They have this jungle primary on Election Day. Democrats and Republicans are all running on the same slate. The top two people advance in what they call a runoff. And
it used to be a much politically purple state, right? It had
it's more red.
Mary Landrieu, remember? And she the surprise election in 2002 when you guys were taking
Yes.
everything, and she still held off.
Well, that's when Democrats could, Greta, this is a big shift. Democrats could really say that they were moderate, much as the now governor of Virginia ran. She says, well, I'm a moderate Democrat. It's very hard when you're running for Congress or the Senate to talk about being a moderate when you look at the leaders of the Democrats in the House and the Senate, and their agenda is way left.
That brings me, Michael, I think this movement, it's almost like defund the cops, it's defund ICE.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good one, because in the end people don't like to see people shot on the streets. Obviously, it's a terrible thing, but in the end, it's like when you hear the word defund, when it's law enforcement.
Oh yeah, I think it's a horrible governing strategy. I think it's a horrible political strategy, and it leads to a lot of posturing that only inflicts political harm, as abolish the police or defund the police did. But we have to be able to say as a party that we support immigration enforcement and we welcome immigrants. You can do both at the same time. Barack Obama certainly did.
Barack Obama said that, Bill Clinton said that, Hillary Clinton said that.
Well, and Barack Obama
now they don't say it.
Barack Obama used ICE in a way that people seem to forget was just as aggressive in some ways, was warrantless, and was also, tactically pretty aggressive.
They called him the deporter-in-chief. They called Obama the deporter-in-chief. It was the left attacking Obama for deporting too many people.
There's a selective memory thing going on right now because ICE has a job to do, and they should be treated like any law enforcement, and I'm kind of embarrassed that Democrats are treating them.
Well, going into these, we know who the leader is going into the midterms on the Republican side of the aisle. That's pretty clear. And Trump, I know he is on every ballot.
We don't want one. We don't need a leader.
Well, that's what I mean. Is that we don't have any.
No, if you think about 2005, 2006 cycle, the same situation. Democrats were locked out of power everywhere you looked. But it wasn't helpful to have one messenger, because what works in the Lehigh Valley will not work in New York City or the Central Valley out in California. Every candidate needs to run their own race and tailor it. And that's why recruiting is so important. Recruiting is the most important thing for Democrats. They have to run candidates who reflect their district.
Are you worried?
Yeah, I'm worried. I mean, this is essentially Trump's 6-year midterm, right? So his second midterm, if you look at two terms, and presidents usually take a bath in that 6th year. The big difference is, no offense to Michael and his team.
He keeps saying that. Every time he says that,
Joe Biden did a really horrendous job, in my opinion. Let me just finish. On the border, on the economy, and projecting strength, 2 wars in 2 continents. I mean, messed up in every conceivable way, had, I think, a lot of scandals. So Trump has a chance to show that he fixed these problems. Now, President Trump's number one challenge is he's got to look like his medicine is fixing the economy.
All right. Wait, hold on a second. We have some breaking news. Trump is speaking from the Oval Office, so I'm going to cut you off for a second to go there.
I'll never come back.
And fantastic, but federal permitting is such a big deal, and we're doing that. The permitting of mines and signing major critical mineral deals with countries from all over the world, and we're getting along with all of them. Every one of them, they want to be in the proper position. We're working very well with countries from all over the world today. We're building on these achievements with this vital new reserve, and now I would like to ask Exim Chairman John Yovanovitch to say a few words, followed by our friends from business in Congress. We'll go over that. But we have some great business leaders, the best, here today. And John, if you would start it off, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. The President gave us a very clear directive. By clear directive, it was much more of an order for us to figure out how to, for the first time in American history,
All right, we'll go back if there's more news. The President speaks from the Oval Office. Michael, I want you to get a chance to respond.
No problem.
Do you remember what I said?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Because
He took notes.
I can say it again.
But I think 2022 proves my larger point about events dictating these midterms, right? As you saw in 2002 and 9/11, or 2006 and Iraq War, Katrina, failure of government, and then a lot of scandal within the Republicans' caucus that year. But in 2022, the big issue that everybody thought Biden was going to be, everybody was going to vote on and have a referendum on was inflation, and it wasn't. It was Dobbs, and we ended up expanding our majority, and he ended up keeping a very small margin. There was no red wave, and that, unfortunately, he made the miscalculation that was a affirmation of his policies and decided to run for re-election as a result of such a historic overperformance in a midterm.
So to be oversimplified, what's the main issue it's going to be for the midterms? What's the do or die?
In some sense, it's Trump. With Democrats, it's Trump. I don't know if that's enough.
Greta?
You say money?
We vote in this country according to how we feel our future looks with the policies, and the number one thing we care about is, can we pay our bills? Can we pay the mortgage?
I disagree. I think in 2000.
You think it's Dobbs?
I think in 2004, Ohio had one of the worst employment rates in the country, and they didn't care about employment. They cared about values issues.
No.
And I think in 2022, it was the same thing.
No.
They didn't care about inflation. They cared about their rights to be taken away.
No, you're wrong about that. Joe Biden flunked the test that he had the policies that would turn it around for them. And that's why he did so poorly. I think the cultural issues are also important.
He wasn't punished for it. Our party expanded the majority in the Senate.
Well, what year?
2022, our midterm.
Fair enough. You can look at 2022 and say, what he's really arguing is that Trump will be okay because a president, even facing some problems, can be just fine in midterms. So thank you for the argument.
I think the tariff decision from the Supreme Court may rattle a lot of things, whichever way it goes.
Well, I think it's going to rattle the private sector for sure.
Well, I don't know, but I don't know which way. I don't know what the court's going to rule. But the economy is. I think the economy is likewise important. But who can predict that one?
I think they're negotiating with Senate Democrats because he understands the power of events and images. The president does, and I think he wants to get through this Minnesota thing. And I think those could be events that really...
I'll just say this. The more the president is running against a liberal judiciary that stays everything he tries to do, the better it is for him.
All right, Matt Schlapp
and
Michael
LaRosa. He gets everything he wants from the Supreme Court.
I hope to see you both tomorrow. Anyway, thank you. Well, we've seen mass protesters rally against ICE, but this masked protester is not what you would expect.
You need to affirm that no city resources will go to ICE, that no cooperation will be given to them. Because as of right now, I stand in front of a council of cowards. And if you do not act, you're not just cowards, you are traitors. I don't want you to sit back and watch. I want you to do something.
Well, your eyes are not lying to you. Last week, that man dressed as Batman, and he ripped Santa Clara officials. The man is concerned about the possibility of ICE agents in Santa Clara ahead of this Sunday's Super Bowl game. The big game, of course, is being played in Santa Clara. City's police chief would not confirm, deny, nor speculate about actions of federal agencies. Back in October, Corey Lewandowski, who serves as an advisor to DHS, said ICE officials would be at the Super Bowl. And coming up, a nightmare for Today Show host Savannah Guthrie. Her mother is missing, and authorities are now saying her mother's house is an active crime scene. New information when the record continues.
I really love Balance of Nature.
There's so many vegetables and so many fruits.
I love everything about it.
The brightness of the colors is an indication of the freshness.
I love the freeze-dried process. I love the easiness of it.
Balance of Nature really is just such a phenomenal product. So you got to keep doing it.
Start your journey with Balance of Nature supplements. Go to balanceofnature.com and subscribe and save today.
Did you know about 1 in 3 people with plaque psoriasis may also develop psoriatic arthritis? With fewer symptoms from moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, where would you go? Imagine being a million miles away. With Tremfya, clearer skin is possible. And for adults with active psoriatic arthritis, Tremfya goes beyond the skin. Less joint pain, stiffness, and swelling is possible. And Tremfya even reduced fatigue. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Imagine being a million miles away. Ask your doctor about Tremfya.
As a neurologist, my patients are often concerned with age-related memory decline. I recommend Cunol Brain Health with 2 powerful, high-absorption ingredients clinically shown to improve memory, focus, attention, and more. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and they're gonna love it.
You have seen the false headlines about Israel and the influencers spreading lies. The consequences are devastating.
Radical Islamist supporting regimes have launched a multi-billion-dollar media campaign aimed at convincing American youth to hate Israel.
Friends of Zion is fighting the propaganda head on. For the first time in history, more than 1,000 American pastors and leaders have gathered in the Holy Land. This is not a political movement, it is a spiritual one. A generation is being called to stand for truth.
That Israel that you see on social media is not what it is.
We need to get the story out.
We saw the faces, we felt the emotions.
If this was in our neighborhood, this wouldn't be allowed to stand.
Visit friendsofzion.org to join us at this crucial time and watch the full story of 1,000 American pastors on this journey of a lifetime.
Satellite internet that's fast, reliable, and installed by professionals. For work, for play, for every day. Available anywhere you call home. Visit Viasat.com/internet now or call 833-8Viasat to sign up today.
Today's show host Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy Guthrie, is missing. She was reported missing midday yesterday in Arizona. Today, Guthrie issued a statement that reads in part, quote, "On behalf of our family, I want to thank everyone for the thoughts, prayers, and messages of support. Right now, our focus remains on the safe return of our dear mom," end quote. Nancy is 84 years old and was last seen on Saturday around 9:30 p.m. at her Arizona home in Catalina Foothills, just north of Tucson. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos has given this update.
It was around noon yesterday, we got a call to the Guthrie residence that Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, was missing. We expended a lot of resources for a missing person that we typically always do, to no avail. We saw some things at the home that were concerning to us. We believe now, after we processed that crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime. This is a 84-year-old lady who suffers from some physical ailments, has some physical challenges, is in need of medication. Medication that if she doesn't have in 24 hours, it could be fatal. She is very limited in her mobility, right? We know she didn't just walk out of there. That we know. There are other things at the scene that indicate there was she did not leave on her own. She's of great sound mind, and she is mobile. It's just, it's a challenge for her to get, as the family says. She couldn't walk 50 yards by herself. 9:45 in the evening, her children left her off. At some time earlier that morning, they got a call from somebody at the church who said, hey, your mom's not here. The family went to the house. I'm thinking they spent some time looking for her themselves before they called us, so I'm guessing maybe they got there around 11. So they did some searching and realized we need some help, and they called 911.
Well, it's such a tough time for Savannah. Let's hope that there's some good news, but this looks rough. Meanwhile, on another story, if convicted, meaning they did it, this is outrageous. Preying on the vulnerable. Here's what we know. A Detroit judge, yes, a judge, and 3 other residents have been indicted by federal prosecutors. Why? Well, for their alleged roles in a years-long scheme to embezzle money from incapacitated and vulnerable individuals. The United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia said, Andrea Bradley Baskin, a district judge on Michigan's 36th District Court, allegedly used $70,000 in a Ward's fund to buy an ownership stake in a local bar, and money embezzled from the estate of a Ward to pay a 2-year lease on a new Ford Expedition for herself. Now, wards are people who have been determined by the court to lack the capacity to manage their own personal and financial affairs. After that determination, a judge then appoints guardians and conservators to manage the personal and financial affairs of the person who is unable to do it for himself. Special agent in charge of the FBI Detroit field officer Jennifer Runyon said in a statement, quote, these 4 defendants allegedly conspired to steal from some of our most vulnerable citizens, looting bank accounts, exploiting legal authority, and profiting off those who relied on them for care and protection, end quote. According to the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia, Judge Andrea Bradley Baskin, age 46, 59-year-old Nancy Williams, 72-year-old Avery Bradley, and 69-year-old Dwight Rashad have all been indicted on conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The U.S. Attorney's Office went on to say Judge Bradley Baskin has also been indicted on several counts of money laundering and a single count of making a false statement to a federal law enforcement agent. Coming up, you hear a war of words, but is that actually the case behind closed doors? The latest reports about the relationship between the United States and Iran when the record continues.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.
Get ready for spring now at Blue Compass RV with RV show prices at over 100 locations coast to coast. Forest River Auroras from $98 a month. Alliance Delta Solos from $198 a month. Or Jayco Greyhawks from $744 a month. Save on the largest selection of America's premium brands with RV show prices on over 15,000 new and used RVs. Hurry to Blue Compass RV. Shop online or in store today.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, Doctor.
I'm a martial artist, a skydiver, a pilot, and all of them require your feet to work. Get up in the morning, and it felt like I was standing on marbles on my heel. When I went into the Good Feet store, the fitting was personalized. It was all about me. You put in the arch supports, and your day becomes better, and the sun shines, the unicorns run by, and, you know, it's a good life. I'm Randy, and that's my Good Feet story.
See for yourself with a free personalized arch support fitting at the Good Feet store.
Prevagen, official sponsor of U.S. figure skating. Marlene trusts Prevagen for her brain, and this is her story.
Hi, I'm Marlene. Taking care of myself, it's also taking care of the family as well. I've been taking Prevagen for around 5 years now. It helps me maintain who I am and gives me more confidence. I'm taking Prevagen and telling my family and telling everyone around me, I know what it's going to do for them. Prevagen works for me, and I see the results.
Prevagen, for your brain.
We're here with Chris Cunahan to talk about why Leaf Filter is the best choice for homeowners this season. Chris, why now?
If I'm investing in one thing this year, it's protecting my home. Clogged gutters cause big problems. Leaf Filter keeps your gutters clog-free year-round.
In any climate?
Absolutely. In blizzard condition, windstorms, downpours, Leaf Filter has you covered.
That's reassuring.
And it's backed by a lifetime transferable warranty. Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
Is Iran really ready to talk with the United States? That appears to be the case based on some new reporting, and this comes as Iran sees United States military assets surging to the region. Middle East correspondent Zach Anders is near the Iraqi-Iranian border and joins me from Erbil, Iraq, where it is 12:42 a.m. Zach?
Late night, Greta. We're watching as these negotiations do appear to be proceeding, with Reuters reporting that on Friday, Steve Witkoff and the foreign minister for Iran, Abbas Araghchi, plan to meet in Istanbul. But this week starts with the Ayatollah warning of regional war if the U.S. strikes, and with regime-run television all weekend airing AI.
Very far away. It's after midnight there. We're going to go to the White House, where President Trump is still talking. He's taking questions from reporters.
Very bad shape. Wasn't kept well before I got there. So we're going to make it. I think there won't be anything like it in the country.
Sir, Mr. President.
Yeah, please.
About your meeting with President Petro later this week, he's been quite critical of you since you spoke back in January after the Maduro raid. What would you like to hear from him tomorrow in terms of drug trafficking in Venezuela? What are your expectations?
Well, I mean, he's been very nice over the last month or two. He was certainly critical before that, but somehow after the Venezuelan raid, he became very nice. He changed his attitude very much. So, no, I look forward to seeing him. He's coming in. We're going to be talking about drugs, because tremendous amounts of drugs come out of his country. And I look forward to see. We're going to have a good meeting. Yeah.
Steve Witkoff is going to be the Iranian foreign minister on Friday. What are you hoping he'll get out of that meeting?
Well, you're going to have a lot of things are happening. You have Iran, and you have Russia, Ukraine, and you have the Middle East. We have a lot of things going. A lot of problems were here for a long time before I got here. We settled 8 wars, and I think we're doing very well with Ukraine and Russia. For the first time, I'm saying that. I think we're going to maybe have some good news. We're losing 25,000 people a month are being killed in that war, ridiculous war. 25,000. It was 31,000 last month. Think of it. Young, beautiful kids, the kids of parents, their parents. It doesn't affect us in one way, but in another way, it's 25,000 souls that if I can solve it. We're not spending money like Biden did. He gave $350 billion away. I make everyone pay. And the United Nations, they're a little bit involved, but if you take a look at what's happening, the countries of Europe are paying us for the weapons. So we have NATO paying, we send missiles over there, they pay us in full. It doesn't cost us 10 cents. And we make money, I guess, but I don't even want to talk about that, because what I really want to do is save those people from dying. They lose, Mary, can you imagine 25,000 to 30,000 people a month? That's like a stadium full of people. every single month. And, you know, I mean, I was blessed with something where I can get these things done. Got 8 of them done. I thought all 8 were going to be more difficult than this one. I thought my relationship with President Putin would give us a, you know, much easier road. But there's tremendous hatred between Zelensky and Putin. Tremendous hatred. I mean, it's a shame, but it's taken longer than we thought. I did call up President Putin, and he's agreed. He's put it out too. They have the same cold wave that we do. Maybe different because it's pretty far away, but it's the equivalent. And Ukraine's a very cold country. It's much colder than us. It's colder than, they say, on average, it's Canada or colder. And on top of that, they have a tremendous cold wave. And I asked him if he wouldn't shoot for a period of 1 week, no missiles going into Kiev or any other towns, and he's agreed to do it. So it's something.
What about Iran's nuclear program? Do you think Mr. Witkoff can get a deal on that?
Well, we're talking about that. We have ships heading to Iran right now, big ones, biggest and the best. And we have talks going on with Iran. We'll see how it all works out.
Mr. President, when time you speak with
Mr. President, the Pentagon released National Defense Strategy last week, and it says...
Where are you from with that nice
I'm from Europe.
Good.
From Lithuania, Baltic states.
Good.
National Defense Strategy says that U.S. will provide critical but only limited support for European defense. What does that mean, limited support? Will the U.S. still provide...
Well, we get along very well with Europe. I do. Because, you know, don't forget, I got the GDP lifted from 2% to 5%. Nobody thought that could be possible. And they're giving us a lot of that money. We have the best military equipment. We're selling it to NATO. But I get along very well. But Europe has to be careful because... You know, there are those that say it's no longer recognizable between immigration and energy. You know, it's there's so much potential. In UK, you know, you have the North Sea oil, and they basically closed it down. And then they buy energy from Norway, which is the North Sea oil. So you figure that when Norway's got trillions of dollars, they have to be careful. You need energy, and you can't do the windmills because the windmills, you're supposed to make money with energy, not lose money. So I'm very disappointed. I love Europe. I love the people of Europe. And they have to be very careful. They're at a tipping point. You have tremendous immigration problems, and you have tremendous energy problems. It's a bad combination. So.
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. President. Kristi Noem just announced that you're deploying body cameras to Minneapolis. What's your thinking behind this decision, and do you want to see this?
Well, it wasn't my decision. I would have, you know, I leave it to her. They generally tend to be good for law enforcement because people can't lie about what's happening. So it's, generally speaking, I think 80% good for law enforcement. But if she wants to do that, I'm okay with it. Remember one thing, we closed the border. I got elected on a disastrous border. And we have nobody coming in through our border anymore. We had 25 million people come in 4 years through our border. Many of them were murderers and drug dealers and mentally insane from mental institutions and insane asylums. And now we don't have anybody coming in. For 9 months now, I mean, they actually report 0. We have 0 people coming in, which I find hard to believe, but the Democrats do that report. They tend to be left-leaning that do that report. So I assume it's true. If it's not, it's a very tiny amount of people. But we basically have a tremendously perfect, strong border. And also, crime levels are at the lowest point they've been in 125 years. Since 1900, we have the best numbers. And that's despite the fact that we had a lot of criminals and murderers. 11,888 murderers came in. And we have the lowest numbers that we've had in 125 years. So, you know, we're doing a good job. If she wants to do the camera thing, that's okay with me.
Mr. President, there was one comment about D.C. during January. Do you think this is due to your efforts, and do you think blue states should see this as a sign that they should cooperate with you?
Well, if there was one, I mean, we haven't had one in a long time. D.C. has become a very safe. There was an in-house homicide. It was in-house. It was a dispute within a family. We have had virtually no crime in D.C. D.C. is now considered a very safe place, and it should be. It's our nation's capital. And we sent in the soldiers. I read the Washington Post this week, and it was incredible. They were trying to determine how did we get so low numbers? The low numbers in D.C. because we have very little crime, if any. And they talked about everything except for the fact that we put our National Guard and great soldiers inside our city. They didn't want to mention that. It's how dishonest. Because if we didn't do that, you'd have tremendous crime in D.C. And I get thanked every single day by people that work in the White House. People, young ladies, men, they come up, thank you, sir, for making D.C. so safe. They walk to work now. A year and a half ago, they wouldn't have walked to work. They would have been killed or mugged or something would have happened to them. So it's, it's a great honor, but you got to read the story in the Washington Post. They do it. Crime is way down in D.C. Now, what's the reason for it? The reason for it is we have very big, strong, good-looking soldiers standing around. And I think they make the place look better. But this is our capital, and we have a very safe capital. We had a very dangerous capital before. Yeah, please.
Sir, yesterday you said you were speaking to people about Cuba to reach an agreement. What sort of agreement are you hoping to reach? Is that with the Cuban government?
Well, it's a failed nation now, and they're not getting any money from Venezuela, and they're not getting any money from anywhere. It's a failed nation. Mexico is going to cease sending them oil. So I'd like to take care of the people that are here from Cuba. You know, we have many people that came from Cuba that were thrown out of Cuba or that fled Cuba. They came over on rafts. They went through shark-infested waters. I don't know how they did it. And that was many years ago. Many would like to go back. Many would like to at least visit their relatives. And I think we're at a pretty close point. We are dealing with the Cuban leaders right now.
Mr. President, the Wall Street Journal reported that the royal family of Abu Dhabi invested hundreds of millions of dollars in your World Liberty Financial. Can you explain why you decided to take that investment? Was that a transaction?
Well, I don't know about it. I know that crypto is a big thing, and they like it. A lot of people like it. The people behind me like it. My sons are handling that. My family is handling it. And I guess they get investments from different people, but I'm not. I have all I can handle right now with Iran and with Russia and Ukraine and with all the things we're doing. So I don't know exactly, other than, I'm a big crypto person. I'm the one that probably helped crypto more than anybody because I believe in it. And the reason I believe in it is because if we don't do it, Scott, I think we can say then China's going to do it, right?
Yes, sir.
If we don't do crypto, then China's going to do it. And it's just like AI. We're leading AI by a lot. And if we weren't leading, China would have led. They're very capable. They're very good. What do you have to say about that?
You've made America the digital asset capital of the world. We did the Genius Act for stable coins. Many of the people standing up here are working on the Clarity Bill to
I hope that gets done.
Market structure.
Yeah.
And we're bringing U.S. best practices to an exciting new industry, digital assets, innovation, and it spreads everywhere. So the U.S.
And do you agree that if we didn't do it, China and others would, but China would?
Oh, China would have had the lead, and then others around the world in terrible jurisdictions would have been doing it.
And on Iran, sir, can you say what your threshold of military action is?
Well, I can't tell you what I'm going to do because right now, we have a tremendous force going there, just like we did in Venezuela, even bigger. And they'll be there soon. And I'd like to see a deal negotiated. I don't know that that's going to happen. But, I mean, if I knew, I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't tell you. I'd be very foolish if I would tell you. But right now, we're talking to them. We're talking to Iran. And if we could work something out, that'd be great. And if we can't, probably bad things would happen.
Mr. President,
Yeah, please.
On the government shutdown, do you think there could be a resolution to this issue? And have you gotten
I do.
assurances from House Republicans?
Well, I spoke with Speaker Johnson. I spoke with Leader Thune. And I think they're pretty close to a resolution. We were at 5.6% GDP, and we lost 1.5 points because of the 42-day shutdown. Think of that. We would have been at 7. Nobody ever saw a number like 7. And I think, Howard, probably 1.5 points was the number, right?
1.5 for the shutdown. Exactly right.
And it's very bad for our country. But despite that, we have the highest numbers we've ever had. We're doing well. We're going right through it. But I will say that I spoke with Senator Schumer numerous times, and I don't think they want to see a shutdown either.
Mr. President, are you going to sue Trevor Noah? Last night in a post, you alluded that something could be coming.
Yeah, well, he said that I spent time on Jeffrey Epstein's island. I didn't. I mean, he's a lightweight, this guy. He's a terrible, I think he's terrible. I thought he did a terrible job at the Grammys. I thought the whole Grammys was terrible. I watched part of it. It's not watchable. But he was a lousy host. I'd say not as bad as Jimmy Kimmel, but pretty close. And no, he made a statement about me and Jeffrey Epstein. I have nothing to do with that. I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. And in fact, if you look at the DOJ, they announced, they released 3 million pages. It's like this is all they're supposed to be doing. And frankly, the DOJ, I think, should just say, we have other things to do, because that whole thing has turned out, other than Bill Clinton and, Bill Gates and lots of people there are a lot of questions about it, but nothing on me. But it was even sort of better than that, because they found that Jeffrey Epstein and this sleazebag writer named Michael Wolff were conspiring against Donald Trump to lose the election. So Epstein was conspiring with a writer for me to lose the election. So right there, you know that I had nothing to do with this guy. But yeah, it's a terrible thing. The amount of time that's being wasted. When Epstein was alive, like 10 years ago, nobody cared about it. But they're only doing it. But now it's really hitting back on them because Bill Clinton is such a big part of it. The Democrats are pushing it. And the problem is that it's turning out to be the Democrats that were with and conspired with Epstein. So I think you're probably going to see a little pullback from them. But think of it. They were working together to try and help me lose the election. But this is the Oval Office, so I guess that didn't work out too well. Okay, one more question.
Mr. President, do you have an update on U.S. troop level in Europe? Are you planning any force reductions?
No, we have a great relationship with Europe. We have a great relationship with our troops. One of the best things that I can say is that if you go back a year and a half ago, so I'm running for election, they had the worst recruitment numbers in the history of our country. Nobody wanted to join the military, or nobody wanted to join the police. Nobody wanted to join the fire departments. We couldn't get anybody to be a proud member of our country. And now, Doug, as I told you before, now we have the best recruiting numbers that we've ever had in our military. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force we love, and Coast Guard. I love the Space Force. It's doing great. But now we have waiting lists on everybody wants to join. You know why? Because people are proud of our country. Because our country is doing great. I think Mary can say the same thing. You had lots of people not working so well, and now you just wish you could get them in faster. I know that it's hard to get them.
Yeah, we continue to bring people in and have training programs. We're investing in the U.S. workforce.
People.
Yes.
But 2 years ago, you didn't see anything like this. It's amazing what's happened. So we have the #1 in the history of our country. We've never had more people that want to join our armed forces than we do right now. And a year and a half ago, nobody wanted to join. They were embarrassed by our country. They were embarrassed by our leadership. And now they're proud of our country. And they're very proud of our leadership. And a lot of the leadership is right behind me. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
Thank you.
Thank you, press. Let's head out.
You've been watching President Trump speak inside the Oval Office. He announced a critical minerals reserve. The president also said he's looking forward to meeting Colombia's president tomorrow at the White House. Now, as an aside, it's no secret that he has a very rough, gruff side of him, but once in a while you see this very sort of gentle, softer side of Trump. And you saw that today because Trump talks about the thing that really bothers him is all the people who are dying in that Russia-Ukraine war. He talks about it all the time behind the scenes. First it's 31,000 a month or 25,000. He cannot stand to look at those pictures, and he thought that it'd be easy once he got into the White House that he could settle the war with Putin, but that hasn't worked. The other thing too is that as for the sort of an interesting, softer side, he told Putin, stop sending those missiles. It's so cold in Kyiv. They need their power in Ukraine. So he saw a little softer side of Trump in the midst of all of that. Thank you for watching. My colleague Hilary and The Big Take is next.